crowd feels a little bit more comfortable not to be on the stage. I have a different take of using the internet. I used the internet as a practicing lawyer back in 1996. It didn't look like it looks today. It looked like AOL. There was very little content where people would put up content. If they did, it was stored in some place where people would say, you know, here's an article on temporomandibular joint injuries and treatment by a dentist, etc. But the idea that people would produce content and they would push content at you and they would measure it by how many eyeballs they got, and then they would have leads coming through would have sounded like the most offensive thing in the world. So what I want to talk about is a different way of using the internet, a better way of using the internet. And I think that it's never been a better time for doing what you want to do and having what you want to have than today. And I mean that sincerely. There's a lot of discussion about, gee, it's hard to get work as a lawyer. There's too many lawyers. There's not as many people who use lawyers. Well, the lawyers aren't being very smart in their approach to things. They don't go where people are. They don't mingle where people mingle. They don't build trust with people. They just don't think it through. And I tell law students the same thing. It's never been easier to get a great job as a law grad doing the type of work you want to do for the type of clients you want to do. And so it's never been a better time. But you've got to leave stupid behind. Now, I didn't sit in all the sessions today, but there's some things I would vehemently disagree with that are taught to lawyers. And I think a lot of it can be very silly. And I would label some of it, stupid. And I think you've got to leave some of that behind. And so I'm going to give you what I think works and I've seen work for lawyers as a practicing lawyer and then having legal technology companies beginning in '99 through today. My talk was titled Content Marketing. Here I'm a clown that I put up and I exit out, no content marketing. Because to me, content marketing sounds like I'm going to write something, and I'm going to try to get your attention, and I want you to love me, and I want it to appear high in the search engines, and then you're going to call my office or come in as a lead. And I just don't think that's what it's all about. I mean, we've had content for, I assume, since the printing press, when Gutenberg kicked it out in the 1500s. And if Abe Lincoln was practicing law and he wrote a book or he wrote a magazine article, I mean, did they really call it content marketing in Springfield in 1858? I mean, I just can't believe they did. And we didn't even use the term content marketing when we started to blog around the year 2000. It was called blogging. It was called a conversation. It really wasn't marketing. And I'm familiar with marketing, at least as it existed when I practiced. Marketing then meant you had a folder in the law office, real folders, in a file cabinet. It was called marketing. And it was filled with the Yellow Page ads from the year before. And I lived in a small town in Wisconsin, 45,000 people. You get the books from Viroqua, Westby, La Crosse, Pershing, Sparta, Monroe. And before you're all done, you got about $250,000 or $300,000 in Yellow Page ads. And then the Yellow Page ad person would say, hey, you better buy the first page by Friday or it's going to be all gone. And then you do it. That was marketing as we knew it. But what ended up happening was the best work came from networking. It came from just being out there. And I thought networking was an awful dirty word. So imagine 1983. Kevin, go to Rotary. 7:30 in the morning, La Crosse, Wisconsin. I mean, in law school, I didn't like to get up at 7:30 in the morning. So now I'm there at 7:30 in the morning, and I'm singing first thing with songbooks. And they pass out the songbooks. Somebody plays the little pitch thing like they played in Catholic grade school, and we sang. And then maybe somebody talked, and then people went home. But before they went home, they passed out business cards really fast. Lawyers, bankers, accountants, and I'm thinking, holy cow, this is how I'm going to get work as a lawyer. And that's what's been ingrained in my head as networking until the internet came about. And I realized that networking was just, being yourself, sharing what you thought was interesting, listening to other people, engaging other people, being your real person. And that's how people found me as a lawyer. So what I'm really going to talk about today is networking online. But yeah, you got to use content because you got to use text or you got to use words. I mean, if you were going to a networking event and somebody told you, do you have the right words? Like, what do you mean you have the right words? Well, there's certain magic words that you use. They're keywords to use. And they're really more popular at networking events than other form of words. And they'll be quite more popular than other words. And you'll attract more people and more attention. And you would think they lost their mind. So I'm just talking about using text for networking. And it's being done to build relationships and build a name. And everything that I talk about is about building relationships and building a name. A lawyer today could say, I am going to publish a publication on a particular type of estate taxes or state taxes in Louisiana that relates to estates and be well known within probably 18 months to 2 years, and carved out a niche within 3 to 4 years that would be unsurpassed in the community. And if other lawyers asked who to go to on this particular type of topic, or even estate planning, that person would come up on the list. How did they do that? They built relationships and they built a name, but they use it through the internet. So what the internet does, all it does is it's steroid. It's like marketing on steroids or networking on steroids. It's a really, really, really fast speed. There's a lawyer from Kansas City that writes the LexBlog. He might be in here. He's over there. I mean, I asked him what he does, and he says, you know, I represent everything that crosses borders, except people. You know, he does international litigation. He starts a blog in November of 2016. How does he get half of his work? From a blog, because he publishes on a niche that people need information on. So, and then what's starting to happen is not only are people finding it via Google, but they're starting to talk about him. So where can you go? You can go to Aaron. I ran across him. I used him. So his network is growing. His relationships are growing. His name is growing. He doesn't worry about AdWords. He doesn't worry about search engine optimization. He doesn't have to worry about all that crazy stuff. He doesn't worry about pushing content at people that they don't want to receive. If he publishes something worthwhile, word gets around that he has it. Content is just the currency of relationships. That's all it is. You can't build relationships without some form of content. It comes out of your mouth, it comes out of a computer, it comes out of a video, it comes out of a podcast. There has to be some form of content. But the end goal isn't to produce content and then figure out how to get it to people. The end goal is relationships, and relationships that can build a name. That's the end goal. And then the end goal ultimately is I would like to be able to support my family, put my kids in college, go on nice vacations like other people do, and do the type of work that I want to do for the type of clients that I want to do it for. But you're just using content for that. You have to be strategic. You just don't go out, you know, I mean, how many people here brought their marketing material to New Orleans with them to go market on the streets? None. I mean, that would be stupid. But yet, you're going to go home, and some of you are going to produce content and try to push it out to every Tom, Dick, and Harry on the street, somehow in hope that it sticks. And then you get people that will say, well, we can target it or sell you things that we can target the audience. But you be strategic. So he figured out that if I put up a publication that isn't being published, I can do that. Now, how can you start? I mean, there's all various ways to be strategic. You could say, you know, I'm sitting slugging it away in this area of law. I could try to get more work in this area, but maybe there's a reason that I'm not getting as much work as I used to. Look at the legal trends report that Cleo puts out. What can I see in this thing? Maybe I'll go and look and see who's successful doing probate litigation in other states, and they're just knocking it dead. And then I find out that nobody publishes in my state on probate litigation. Holy cow. Maybe I should call those guys in New York or California or another state where they're doing it and ask them how it's going. You know, that's starting to think strategically. What if I do this and I get seen and a practice starts to grow? I don't know how you guys fell into your practice areas. Mine was dumb luck. I knocked on doors to get a job as a lawyer, and if you knock on door 8 times and you bother them enough, they hire you. But the next thing I know, I'm showing up and I'm doing a divorce hearing that somebody gives me and a bankruptcy hearing, and all the time I wanted to be Perry Mason. That was my idea of a lawyer because my grandfather watched that show. It took me a long time to get there. But the beginning part, you're doing a lot of everything. You have the ability, though, to be strategic, to pick an area that you think you're passionate about. I mean, how strategic can you be and how early can it be? There's nothing too early to start. There's a kid from Michigan State University, law school, and we were just doing a talk like this, but it was more of a boot camp, so there was more time to talk about tactics and specifics. And he figured out how to put together a Twitter list on Bitcoin, but not Bitcoin. Bitcoin for how you could install Bitcoin in professional athletes' contracts. I mean, I hardly know what Bitcoin is, let alone have figured out that because I came to Michigan State to follow athletics and I thought I was going to be an agent, and now I'm going to figure out this. What happens to him? His second year, somebody asked him on Twitter if he would intern for a firm in London for 14,000 pounds because he's got this niche. What happens next? During his last year at law school, he's exchanging notes on Twitter with a practice group head for Holland and Knight in Miami, and he's got a job in Miami. He's working in Miami right now. Now, he could have said, I got to get a job as a lawyer. I'm going to figure out what to do. Oh, my God, we got to get more divorce work. We got to get more DUI work. We got to get more real estate work. We got to do this type of work. But he was strategic. He went out and figured out what would be an opportunity, what would be fun, what would be interesting, and he went out and did it. His ability to do that once, he'll be able to duplicate over a lifetime. So obviously Bitcoin is going to look silly because it'll be so traditional, and 5 years from now, he'll be on to do something else. It's all social that we're talking about. This is not screaming at people. It's social. When you go to the event tonight, now there's going to be a lot of noise, and it'll be, I know these Clio parties, there are a lot of noise and whatever. But you're not going to go in and start screaming at people and just walk up to them and just start screaming in their ear. But sometimes it feels like that on the internet with lawyers. We just scream content at people. You listen first. You engage second. So the most important thing in content marketing, if you want to call it that, listening. You listen to the conversation. You give love. Everybody likes love. When you talk about other people on the internet, they see you. If I want a meeting with a large corporation, I may write about them. They'll see me. They might invite me to dinner in New York, a company in the Netherlands. I'm in Seattle. That really happens because I'm not talking about my company. I'm talking about what they said, and that leads to relationships. You build a networking room. So you build your own room. You didn't randomly go to a room and say, I wonder if there'll be people here. That was Rotary. I wonder if there'll be anybody here that might love me enough to think highly of me enough, and then I could somehow get work from these relationships. You build a room of influencers, clients, and prospects. Influencers are the most important people. So your clients and prospective clients are not the most important when you begin to share your insight and commentary. The influencers are. Who's an influencer? The Business Journal, the associations, bloggers. They're the influencers. They used to be really influential because they could write about you. Well, now they are 80 times more important because the algorithms are feeding it. So if somebody is citing me and talking about what I've written at Facebook, Facebook knows that. The same at LinkedIn, the same at Twitter, the same at my blog. And these algorithms and these machines are spidering to put you further behind in the race when you don't even know it, when the other people are out here with the influencers. Clients, prospects. How do you do this? It's not that hard. Who here has used Feedly? 1, 2, maybe it's less than 10. Feedly is a news aggregator. With this stuff, I can listen to the influencers, I can listen to my clients, I can listen to prospective clients. How is that possible? So I might see an article in the Kansas City paper, the San Diego Union, the New York Times, relating to child custody. Now I'm going to show you in a minute how I share that on Twitter, but I might decide to reference that in a blog post. Why would I do that? Because that's engaging in the conversation. I can subscribe to family law blogs, the New Jersey Family Law blog. I can monitor the term quadro, for dividing a pension in a family law case. So I'm seeing people write about this. Well, what is that writing? That's the room. Do you know how influential it is when somebody looks up your name and they see you cited in newspapers and other blogs across the country? You know your shit, or you wouldn't be referenced by these people. By using something as simple as this, monitoring sources, blogs, articles, association newsletters. Imagine you want to be speaking at a conference because you thought that's where your clients would be or other lawyers would be that could refer work to you. What do? You monitor the conference site and you get or the association site, you get feeds that come in here and you give them love. You know what they do? They thank you, and then they invite you to conferences, and then they pay your way, and you ask your wife to come with you or your husband to come with you and say, we're going to Hawaii. Now, if really it came down to it, if my wife said, how? I said, well, I write about their association. I share the good stuff because it's relevant to my audience that follow me on my blog or follow me on Twitter. That's really not that hard. And really, it's polite. It's polite. I mean, if my mom was listening to this, she couldn't understand it. But if I got right down to it and I said, Mom, what I'm doing is I try to listen more than I talk. I try to be polite, and I try to share what other people are saying more because I think they have very valuable information that I can share with people I don't know. That's reasonably polite. So that's what I'm doing with Feedly. How many people here use Twitter lists? Twitter lists are great. You know, if you follow sports, they're wonderful. That was the first time I found them. All of a sudden, I put together a Twitter list of people that were at the Indianapolis 500 and reporters that were covering the Indianapolis 500. So I could see everybody tweeting. You can create a Twitter list on any subject that you want by identifying the influential people on Twitter that are tweeting on a subject. So if I said, who were the people that were most influential on eminent domain in the United States, I could find them tweeting because people that are really in the know use Twitter, and they use Twitter a lot. Anybody that thinks Twitter is going out of style because it can't keep up with Facebook is flat out wrong. It has 350 million people that use it regularly. That is not a failure. It is news now. Leading appellate lawyers in the country use Twitter as their best way to stay up to speed on cases and insight and commentary they can get from other lawyers. So I could put together a Twitter list on eminent domain, and I'm in the room. What would I do with that information? Maybe there's a good post or article that somebody shared. And what I would do is I would take my blog, I would open it up, and I would say, interesting story from Patricia Smith in the New York Times today about such and such, and I would link to it, and I would take a block quote, and I would say, this is what she said. I make one say she went on to say this with another block quote, and then by that point in time, I'm naturally going to flow out why I shared this with you. She sees it. She sees it. And you know what else happens? Your clients and prospective clients go, you are on game. You stay up to speed. I have no idea whether my lawyers stay up to speed or not. I have no idea whether they're learning or not. They just seem to be pushing stuff out at me like every other lawyer. Your content marketing can look no different than a yellow page after a while. Some lawyers pay other people to put up content in their name and say it was the lawyer's name, which arguably is unethical because it's misleading. But look what Twitter can give you. It gives you that flow of information on a Twitter list. You can also, imagine you wanted to court certain clients in your community. Let's say it was healthcare institutions in a community, the size of Kansas City or Des Moines or New Orleans. And so you create a Twitter list of the leading healthcare institutions, their Twitter handles, but then you get smart. You say, I'm going to look up CEO, CMO, CFO, Chief Knowledge Officer of these healthcare institutions. I'm putting them on a Twitter list. And when I'm standing in line at Starbucks, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to see if they're sharing anything they're proud about. And if they are, I'm going to retweet it with a kudos. You know how many lawyers in New Orleans are giving kudos to the CEO of a healthcare institution here in town today? 0. You could have your kid put together a Twitter list. I mean, I did. That's how I put them together. I came up with a list of every law firm of a certain size and then their officers. And it was amazing. I met somebody the first night that I used it. It's so easy. It's a matter of listing, and it's cool. It's fun. You respond to that CEO, they're going to drop you a note and say, thank you very much. You're going to say, do you mind if I connect on LinkedIn? I'm going to say, no, that would be great. We should get together for lunch. You're sitting there having lunch with the CEO of a healthcare institution, and their lawyer is sitting in their office someplace, probably doesn't even use Twitter, doesn't even know you're doing this, and you're just getting a relationship going. If you just went to lunch 3 times a week, you'd have a home run. When my dad had salespeople, he had them have egg timers on their desk because he didn't want them to be on the phone for more than 3 minutes because they couldn't do anything on the phone. And he didn't want to see them in the office because if they were in the office, they weren't building relationships with people. And it wasn't about selling, it was just getting relationships going. Sooner or later, you get work from the people that like you. Strategic blogging, and I'm going to roll through what I think, various forms of social media. One is blogging. And it gives you the ability to learn, to meet people, to demonstrate your subject matter expertise, to demonstrate that you're vulnerable. And I tell people a good blog is sharing what you're learning. And then people say, oh my God, you can't do that as a lawyer. I mean, like, really? So you've got to act like you know everything at a certain age and then you just shut it down? You've got to have passion for what you're going to write on, because you're going to be learning it, you're going to be meeting people, and you're going to grow a reputation in that area. So you got to be careful what you wish for. Find something you can be passionate about, and it shows, because as bloggers, we will say they have no passion. That's just, milk toast they're putting out. That's just stuff. It's got to be a publication. Publication, what I mean by that, it's not a website. A blog is a blog. If I'm going to blog on New Orleans estate planning, it's a publication. I'm not going to put, I've got a website and I put blog up in the top. But you guys remember when we used to put links on sites? List of links, like they were mandatory. Like anybody used them. Well, that, to me, when I see blog on the top of a website, it looks like I have a blog. My website company told me I had to have one. I got it. I mean, it's not a publication. A publication is a publication. It demonstrates that you're publishing. You've got to be on a niche. Greg Siskine, who immigration lawyer, talks about niches leading to riches. And he's right. Greg had an international immigration firm representing employers. And when he did the first blog, he didn't do it on immigration law. He did it on healthcare institutions and immigration law. And then he did one on professional athletes. And he got a professional athlete as a client. And then he got a minor league team. Then he got a professional, then he got a major league team, then he got a minor league, and then he gets a major league team. He never would have got that if he would have done an immigration law blog. It would have been possible. You have to share. The best way to market your blog is to talk about other people, bar none. People say, well, I'm going to start this blog, how is it going to be seen? Well, one, if it's good, don't worry about it. This is field of dreams in every way. If you build it, they will come. But you've got to build it on a niche. It's got to be you. It's got to come with passion. And you've got to share. Because if you talk about me, I see you. The technology allows me to see you. Now, it's not as easy as it used to be. So what you have to do is when you do a blog post and you share it on Twitter, you've got to give a little hat tip to that reporter at the New York Times that you cited, or that blogger across the country. And they'll thank you for that. And now you're dancing. You're that little form of relationship. You're building that reputation. What's your take? Is a great blog post. I saw this. I'm citing the person. Here's my take. Here's why I brought it to you. Who's old enough to remember when we Xerox things and we put notes next to articles and we sent it to clients? Thought you'd be interested in this. People even spam that for a while. There were Post-it notes say, thought you'd be interested in this. You get this junk stuff. This is like the articles from the newspaper and the magazine, and you send a note. What's your take? Why did I send this to you? Except it's so much better. The party that published it sees you. It's indexed on Google forever. It's shareable on social media. It's wonderful the way it spreads. These are publications. Now, let's say that Hillary Bricken decided that she was going to have a blog and she was going to put it on Harrison Maury's website. And she was going to talk about legalization of marijuana in Washington. 3 years ago, or I don't know, it's like 3 years ago. Where would she be today? She would be an associate at Harrison Maury. She might have a little bit of work in that arena. Now, She puts up a blog, Can a Law Blog. Where's Hillary Bricken today? Hillary's a rock star. She makes money not only from representing clients, she makes money from putting on conferences with hundreds of people there that are generating hundreds of thousands of dollars because they want to know what her take is on cannabis issues in the business world and the licensing world. And look at the name of the firm, Harris Bricken. Maury's gone. You're out of here. You weren't publishing like other people in the firm. This is a firm that Dan Harris wrote China Law Blog for. I mean, that's a great story. She never has to worry about where her work is coming from, ever. She doesn't have to worry about whether the phone is going to ring or the email comes or people approach her at a conference and say, Hillary, I just want to talk to you about something that we're working on. To me, that's so cool because at 35 years old, I was still scared to death that I started to have all these kids, 5 kids, and I have no way to feed them, really. And I'm hoping the telephone rings. You sit down on Friday night with my wife and you go, how's this year going to be? And you go, well, this is how many cases we think we can settle, and this is how many are going to go to trial. And we know if they go to trial, hopefully we win 80% of them, and it'll cause some to settle. But it was scary as hell. And I try to imagine what it's like to be like Hillary. This is Peter Marler. Peter's my age, so old people can do this stuff. This is not a kid's game. If you look at kids and relationships and networking, how many people have coached hockey or soccer like little kids? They hang out with each other. They don't go talk to a lot of other people. Older people start to realize after a while that I got this work by dumb luck, but maybe it was relationships. Peter left a large firm, large by, almost 1,000 lawyers. He thinks it's small to be in a 90-lawyer person firm. I was in a firm with 2 lawyers or 15. But he publishes on New York business divorce. That's a niche. He wanted to have business dissolution cases of businesses that, maybe Skadden Arps, he couldn't do that level. But he just got a case because the people were not satisfied with Jones Day. Jones Day has more lawyers in the United States than anyone. And they're coming to him because he publishes on this. Do you think that if he had a blog at Farrell Fritz's website and it said blog, that he would have the ability to put his son through Yale? No, because he couldn't generate those type of resources, not only for himself, but for other lawyers in the firm. Blogging FAQs. Length doesn't matter. Anybody that tells you that you need to publish 1,200 words or whatever, that's for people whose blogs that suck. If I write a blog post that's interesting to people and it's 200 words or 300 words or whatever it is, that's okay. And I stop blogging when I'm done talking. So when I'm done sharing something, I'm done. Length does not necessarily matter. Frequency. Blog when you have time and you have the feelings to do it. That's me. Other people need to do it on a regiment. Peter Marler publishes every Saturday morning. It started before his kids got up. Now his kids are gone. He still does it every Saturday morning for an hour to 2 hours to 3 hours. And then he publishes it to go live on Monday morning. Sometimes when I'm traveling, I don't publish for a couple weeks. That's okay. The news comes out when you say something. It's not like people are coming to your blog and go, oh my God, they're lesser lawyer. I was going to use them, but they haven't published a blog post in 4 weeks. And you get people that tell you that. You have to post 2 times, 3 times. Oh my God, if somebody comes to your site and you don't have content up every so often, you don't look like you know what you're doing. That's ridiculous. If you went to the sports column and the person didn't write that week, you wouldn't hold it against them. If you opened a magazine and they didn't write that month, you wouldn't hold it against them. Your information comes out into the flow on the internet, and believe me, there are millions of people saying things. They're not going to miss you when you miss a blog post. I tell lawyers when they start, try to publish maybe twice a month. Because as you start to do it right, and you start to get some love, it becomes not like work, and you start to get the hang of it. And it becomes easier. Maybe you'll get up to 4 times a month. SEO is a result of 2 things. 1, good technology, where you put the right titles to your posts under what people could find it. And 2, people are giving you love from the outside world. You're writing good stuff that other people talk about and they cite. I know really good people that do search engine optimization. Some of them are pretty good friends. I haven't paid a dime on SEO, ever. But what I write about is always at the top of the search engines because I'm putting out valuable information on a subject. So SEO is a result of good insight and commentary. Google pushes the good stuff to the top. That's why you keep going back. You can game it for so long, but it's a game, and then you pay a lot of money for it. Marketing your blog is by talking about other people. I talked about that. You can do group blogs. They don't have as much impact sometimes as a person because then people don't get the feel of who this is as an individual. The platform, is up to you. There's various platforms. I would have your own place. I wouldn't be sitting at Medium where it's them, and it could be a different business model than yours. You want to be in a business model that's promoting you to build relationships and build a name, and that's supporting you, and you want to own your content over time. Social media, other forms of it than blogging, I look at it as the ability to get out and engage. And it's relevant to content marketing, if we want to call it that, because if I'm a New York Times reporter, I have to use Twitter, and I have to use Facebook. Why? Because it's the way that trust is built, and trust is how content moves today. It moves from people that trust other people. If I get something that somebody else shared on Facebook, I'm more likely to read it than it coming from a newspaper. It just comes via trust. So you have to have these trust channels built up over time, or your information doesn't flow the way that a lot of people move information. We're lawyers, but do you really think that the average person in your community is thinking about getting content coming from lawyers on email newsletters and distribution services and being a lead? They don't. They just open up their iPhone and they go out to Facebook, Twitter, business people go to LinkedIn. Well, you better have built presences there and relationships there. Otherwise, the things that you share as far as content aren't going to move around in ways that people see it. It's also not going to build relationships of trust by which people hire you. This is Twitter, strategic Twitter. The first time I heard somebody talk about Twitter was Tony Zai, the CEO of Zappos, at a conference years ago. And he was talking about Twitter for relationships. And I kept thinking, what is he talking about? My dog rolled over, I ate a cheese sandwich. What could Twitter possibly be used for? But he talked about relationships. So I realized, well, he's a lot smarter than I am, as most people are. And I went and looked, what were people using Twitter for? They were sharing other people's stuff that they saw. And people liked getting that Associated Press on a niche. So I started to use it. But what I did was, I don't know if I said follow influencers, but what I did was I followed sources of news and information in my aggregator, which today is Feedly, my news aggregator. And I shared it. And I put an attribute for the person. And they saw it. So my prospective clients thought that I must know what I'm doing because I'm reading all this stuff. And the people whose stuff I shared, they liked it. Because there is no way that a kid from La Crosse, Wisconsin walks into the New York Times without Twitter and a blog. No way. I'm listening. I don't push stuff out on Twitter. And if you're going to share your own blog posts on Twitter, you better damn well share about 15 or 20 other things, maybe 40, maybe 50. Because if I posted a blog post a week ago, okay, I might have shared it. And other people might have shared it on Twitter before I even shared it because they saw it. But during that week, I probably shared 100 other things that I read. I have a really hard time reading a newspaper now because I'm looking for the share button. There's no share here. How do I share? How does a reporter know that I read this? And then I engage. So I might hit the like button based on what somebody responds to me. I might retweet what somebody says. I might set up a meeting with the dean of Northwestern Law School. Really? A week ago Friday, I'm arranging a meeting with the dean of Northwestern Law School who liked one of my tweets. And then I said, I'm coming to Chicago, we should meet. And he responds and says, I have time, but only between 1 o'clock and 3 o'clock on Wednesday afternoon. I said, I'll be there, 1 o'clock. That's engagement. Then you share your stuff. But you see all the things, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you get to share your stuff. Because if you start to share your stuff on Twitter and you share your blog post, you know what it looks like? The idiot that only shares their stuff. And you know what you do with Twitter? You leave a record of it too. So you can scroll down and you go, oh my God, they did it forever. This is Feedly and Buffer working together. Buffer is another app. How do I use Buffer? You just Google it. I can share a post that I read inside Feedly by pushing a button on my iPhone or my iPad. How easy is that? That's amazing. And I do that by sitting at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee in the morning before I go take the dog for a run. And then I share a post from a lawyer who is as passionate about solo lawyers in the United States as anybody, Carolyn Elephant, and I share it. Can legal technology innovation be transformative? And I put Carolyn's name there. And then I push the button. You know what she does? You know, she might thank me. And you know what happens when we see each other at a conference? We hug each other. And that's cool. And I'm building relationships. Now that's my world, because she might talk about what my company does and how we might be able to help people that she intersects. Your world is a different world that you might be following. But that's a simple way that that happens. Strategic LinkedIn. Your profile's got to rock. That's a given. You've got information there at every single place. This school, this is why I picked this school. This law school, this is why I picked this law school. This is what I learned at this law school. I went to this job, and this is what I learned at this law school, because you're not going to be adult like everybody else and just list all these things in the number of years you went there. It's got to rock. You connect with the people you meet, and now you share. Because you don't need to share as much other people's stuff on LinkedIn for LinkedIn to work. If you share a blog post of yours on LinkedIn that you wrote with a little teaser or summary about it, do you know what happens? People like it, and then they comment on it. And next thing you know, you look and you got 31 people that liked it. Now, some lawyers look at that and they think that's really cool, I've been loved. The other way to look at it and say, is there anybody here I don't know that I would like to know? I think I'll push their button and connect with them and drop them a note. You don't even need to know. You don't need to say, hey, I saw that you liked my post. They already like you. Hey, if you don't mind, I'd like to connect with you on LinkedIn. They already like you a little bit because they've liked your post. Pretty good chance they're going to respond with a personal note about it. So that's how you're using LinkedIn. The content is the currency of relationships. The goal wasn't to get people to like it at LinkedIn. The goal was to meet people that you wanted to meet. Referral sources, influencers in your community, and direct clients. This is how it's done. You're building that reputation that took 30 years in 2 years. And you're engaging, through these exchanges. How many people here use Facebook for business? How many people here use their Facebook personal page for business so they only have one Facebook page? Me. It's great. And the algorithms take care of it. If I put personal stuff up, a lot of my business friends don't see it because Zuckerberg took care of that. They're not interested in that. It's kind of like Google. You see what adds value to your life so long as you use Facebook a lot. If you use Facebook a lot, it's wonderful. It gives me the news and information I want when I want it from people that I trust, and I build relationships like it's going out of style. And it kind of reminds me of the people that have a personal and professional. I took an associate with me when I started a law firm, and I said, your name isn't in the white pages. And this is when we had white pages. And he goes, you're right. I don't want clients to know how to get hold of me. I said, well, that's not your choice. The clients get to decide when they can get a hold of you. If it's Friday night or Saturday morning or Sunday night or whatever, they'll call you. You need to be where they are and be like them. Facebook is a social community. I share things of other people, but mostly I share my thoughts. I share pictures of my family, my kids. When we go to Amazon, bring your parent to work day, I got, my wife and I stand in front of the hemisphere thing or whatever it is, and it's cool and everybody likes it. When I put up a post on Facebook about going to Parents' Day at Amazon, I get all types of business people engaging in that and liking it. And I'm, telling my wife, I said, look at that. There are all these people, like 91 people seem to like it. And I, whatever. I can't sell those likes, but I'm engaging people. I build a network of people, and I engage with people. And it's cool. And it's real. And if I'm going to be a lawyer, when I went to law school, it was to make a difference in the world. And, I somehow kept an ounce of that through third year when everybody else lost it at the end of first and second and whatever. But you've got to be where the people are. You've got to go where people are. Somebody talked about that from Google earlier today. You can start small and learn. So this is not a race to figure this stuff out. This is trial and error. You will not get disbarred for this. There's no legal ethics canons that say you can't do any of the stuff that I've talked about here today. Nothing prevents you from doing all of this. Nothing. You can set a goal of a year from now, I would like to know how to use the internet for building a name and building relationships better than I have today. That's not bad. And you could pick one of them. You could say, I'd like to know how to use Twitter. I'd like to know how to blog, Facebook, LinkedIn. Pick one. You don't have to do all of these things. Not everybody does. I'm kind of crazy about this stuff. But leave stupid behind. This stuff, if you can't understand it, if you can't explain to other people exactly why it works and how it works and what you're paying money for, I don't know. I mean, when somebody tried to explain SEO to me the first time, I thought I was going to get sick. I just couldn't understand it. So what I did when I started this company, I said, I got to know what it is. So I went to Barnes & Noble, 2004, bought a book, SEO for Dummies. And it took me on July 4th weekend and I outlined it and realized it wasn't as complicated as everybody made it sound it to be. I'm sure there's better ways to do it than me, but I get by. There's no competition if you do these things. None. Because we're sitting here, and let's say there's 75 or 100 people here right now. There'll be 10 by tomorrow that are thinking they might do some of this. 1 or 2 actually will. And the people back in your communities, the other lawyers, they weren't even here. So you come out and do this, and you're just killing them. So it's like you're Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers using the internet, and these are your competitors. And you just keep scoring touchdowns on them and running over them, and you're just killing them. It's funny. I mean, here you would notice that the Packers are beating the kids, but on the net, the other lawyers don't know. In fact, there's lawyers that walk into other lawyers' offices and say, "This is going on," and their lawyers, some they just don't believe. I mean, how would you like to be Jeff Nowak in Chicago? The first time I met Jeff, we were talking about Little League. I was managing. He was umpiring. He's going to do a blog on FMLA Insights. And Jeff was probably early 30s. So because he liked that area. Imagine his partners the day. I'm just trying to imagine a relatively small firm, him walking down the hall and saying, everybody be on their game because Southwest Airlines is coming in today, general counsel's office and a consultant, because the consultant apparently did a favor to somebody in-house counsel at Southwest Airlines and got an appointment with Jeff because Southwest Airlines was a fan of his blog. There's nobody else in Chicago or in the nation understands that that's why Southwest Airlines arrived in his office. And I saw Jeff a few weeks ago. You got any other crazy stories? He goes, yeah. He goes, sometimes when you go to a conference and somebody comes up and says, they just want to meet you. He goes, it sounds so stupid. And he goes, that happened to me. He goes, it was somebody from in-house counsel from Chick-fil-A. And they had a blog post of mine printed out, and they said, I need you to sign this, to autograph it, because somebody back in our office is a big fan of your blog. So Jeff finds out who they are, calls them. He's representing Chick-fil-A. So do you really think that Chick-fil-A's lawyers know that Jeff got that work because he blogs on the FMLA Insights? There's just no way. But he's killing them. He's just crushing them. And he looks at it and goes, it is so easy. And he talks about the fact that the other lawyers in his office just don't get it. And it goes on and on and on, even up to the largest firms that have millions of dollars in marketing budgets. You got Dave Donahue that's writing a blog on retail patent litigation in a large firm. They got 8 other blogs that are, one is worse than another, that are doing nothing. And they can't figure out why Jeff or why Dave gets all this work. I thank you for the opportunity just to be here. I get excited talking about it. And anybody that wants any help on this subject, they can always ping me. It's just Kevin at LexBlog. Real Lawyers, if you search for my blog, Real Lawyers Have Blogs. Or pick up the phone. Thank you very much.